All right. So we would like to thank you all for coming today. We're really excited to have James.Munder here. James is a wealth management advisor and he heads up Munder Financial. He's located here in Indianapolis, but he also runs a national practice. He focuses on the majority of his time on financial planning for families with special needs, as well as tax strategy when it comes to overall planning. So he's going to be talking with us today about creating financial security for a loved one with special needs. So, James, I'm going to hand things over to you. And for those of you attending, I am going to put James's contact information in the chat box. So, if you want to copy that down and you need to get a hold of him, you'll have all of that info. Okay, so James, take it away.
Thanks very much, Stephanie. And hi to everyone on the call. And thanks for carving out some time out of your day to join us today. So I'm going to share my screen here in a second so that there's some actually content we can go through. But a little background on me, I guess, first and foremost, before I dive into things. So I've been a wealth management advisor and I run my own financial practice with Munder Financial. And I've been doing so for the past 17 years. I would say that probably 70% of the individuals, well, 60, 70%, I don't know if I can put an exact number on it, but the vast majority of the people that I work with are families with special needs. And I would like to say that it was a well thought out plan when I started this practice, well over a decade ago, that was who I was going to help and who I was going to focus on. But the reality is it wasn't that way. I started working with one family and that family found what I did and how I approached the special needs planning to be really helpful. So they put me in touch with another family, and then that family put me in touch with 5 more families, and so on and so forth. And so you'll probably see my face in special needs magazines and things of that nature, just because it is kind of organically grown. So we love doing things like this, where I can just get in front, and usually, ideal world, we do this in person. I think everyone's on the same page there. But with the COVID environment, we're just trying to get in front of people. And my goal for today is to give the people on the call some tangible things that they can do in their overall finances to approach planning the correct way, at least in my opinion. If you ask 20 different advisors to put together a financial plan, you'll probably get 10 different answers. But I tend to focus a lot of my time and energy on that special needs family, and tax strategy becomes a big portion of that. So I am sure that as I go through this, there will be questions that do come up. And someone on the call might want to stop me. They might want to say, hey, what's this? Go further down detail on that. I'm guessing I won't take the full hour till 1 o'clock to go through all this information. So if we have, 15, 20 minutes at the end and we just want to open it up for questions, it's kind of like being back in school, right? There's no stupid question if you're thinking about it. Most likely the other person on the call is thinking about it as well. Just ask me and we can kind of go from there. So let's just jump into it, and I'll start kind of putting together, or well, not putting together, but walking you guys through the PowerPoint slide I put together. Let me see if I can share my screen. 1 second. Let's see if I can do this. Technology, gotta love it. Now, it should be kind of in the PowerPoint. I would love to see if I can actually do the presentation mode. Stephanie, do you want to hop off mute? Are you seeing it in presentation mode, or are you seeing it in the actual?
We're seeing it in presentation mode. Yep.
Perfect.
Yep.
And I'm going to stop my video, mainly because I get distracted by seeing my own face here on the screen. And I'll start ripping you guys through this. So yeah, the hope today, again, like I said, is just to give you guys some, takeaways that you can implement immediately. So let's just start diving in. I would say the first thing I want to hit on, or I guess the question, it's a rhetorical question I'd ask every single person on the call is, why are you here today? And why are you listening in? I'm guessing, or I'm assuming it's probably because someone that you love has special needs. And it's important for you to set themselves up or be educated on how you can set them up for a secure future going forward. The first thing I would just say is that you're definitely not alone. And I feel like a lot of people in finances, regardless of families with special needs or not, feel like they're alone. They feel like it's just happening to them. And I would just tell you that finances are stressful, they're overwhelming, A lot of people are worried about not being able to do it right, or if they can even do it in the first place. So many families have similar concerns. So like I said, today's goal is just to hit some highlights as to what you guys can do to help, make sure you're setting yourself up correctly. So here's three things that I would just say. I mean, I already said that you're not alone. You guys get that, but it's never too soon to start the planning. I work with a lot of different people that are at different stages of their life. Their kids are different ages. And I get a question a lot of just, when's the perfect time to do this? It's never too soon. I mean, before the baby's born would be ideal in my situation, just so we can kind of start getting our heads in the right space. The other thing is, you absolutely do not have to do everything at once. There is so much that goes into financial planning. There's so much that goes into it that a lot of times what I find is that people get overwhelmed. And when someone gets overwhelmed, they shut down and they do nothing. And the worst thing to do on the financial spectrum is nothing. I think people are worried about making the wrong move, but no move is the wrong move, right? Most likely, financial plans have to be adjusted and changed over time. I've been in business for a little bit, and I've never not adjusted a financial plan for a person. Life changes, curveballs happen. People lose jobs, people get new jobs. Things just automatically change. So I would just tell you, get yourself on a path, have an idea as to where you want to go, and then change the strategy as time goes on. There are so many resources out there. So I just want to make sure that people are aware of the resources. I'll hit on a couple of things as we go through this today, but what resources do you automatically have available to you that you might not be familiar with? So 4 main things, okay? Build the team. You cannot do this alone. And that sounds pretty doom and gloom when I say it like that. Most likely you cannot do it alone unless it is your full-time job. But I will tell everybody on the call this: it's my full-time job, and I can only do 1/3 of the planning. You have to have a team of people to help you with this. And I'll go through what 3 areas that you want to have. You need to make sure that you're developing a special needs plan also. A plan for what you want to have happen. I know that sometimes the future is a little unknown, and we're not exactly sure what variables are going to happen, or if things get better or worse, what situation looks like. We like I said before, you don't have to have it all figured out. We can always tweak and change the planning. Having a plan in place and having somebody like me change it is a lot easier than not having a plan and me having to start everything from scratch. I'm going to touch on special needs trusts, and I'm going to touch on ABLE plans as well, or 529A plans, just to make sure you guys are familiar with them, because I tend to get a lot of questions on those. So yeah, let's get started on this. Okay, building the team. These are the 3 areas that I would tell every single person, or usually when I start a conversation with a family, this is where I begin. What's the team look like? Who's the financial professional you have in your corner? Who's the government benefits specialist, the person who is an expert on all the benefits that potentially you have accessibility to, or you can receive money from? We do not want to leave money on the table that you're entitled to. And the last thing is an attorney. Ideally, someone who is specialized in the special needs area, special needs trusts. So I've got a handful myself that I use, and around the Indianapolis area, and really around the country for that matter, but you got to have these 3 people in your team, in my opinion. So this is really where I, as the financial professional, come in a lot and start a conversation. Besides the getting people to understand who they want to have on the team, it's getting an understanding of where you currently are. And I really start just with the husband and wife, right? Where are you guys currently? Okay. Where do you want to be in the future? And then for your loved one, right? Or loved ones, where are they currently? And where would you like them to see what would you like to see for them in the future? This is going to be a narrative or kind of an overall theme as I keep talking today, but we don't have to have it all figured out. And I think most people think you do to create the plan, right? What do you want to have happen to them going forward? What's your ideal situation? And then we can deal with curveballs as life comes at us. Okay, so I spend a lot of time and energy, probably an hour or 2 hours with an individual, getting an understanding of not only their own financial position and where they hope to go just in life, but what life they want life to look like for their loved one. This is where the government's benefits specialist is going to come into play. Okay, so developing a special needs plan. We absolutely cannot leave money on the table that you're entitled to. These are some of the most well-known benefits. You can see them on the screen here. And for those of you who are not looking at a computer screen, I'll just kind of rattle them off for you really quick. Social Security, right? The supplemental Social Security income and retirement income. I'm going to talk through that a little bit. Medicaid, healthcare, custodial home care, vocational services, public school services, veteran benefits. You gotta have someone who is absolutely familiar with these. I would say that I'm 99% accurate on them, and attorneys, most special needs attorneys, are 90 to 99% accurate on them too. They understand them, but we don't want a law change or a tax change in the near future to potentially change the benefits you're eligible for. So having that government specialist person is a huge, huge part of the plan. And one question that comes up almost consistently is, will my loved one qualify for Social Security benefits? Like, will my child qualify for Social Security benefits at all? What's that look like? So let's talk a little bit about just what those benefits look like, at least from a high level. And before I go into this, the statement I'd like to make is that it is not one size fits all. Probably the hardest thing about finances in general, whether it's families with special needs or not, is it's different strokes for different folks. Everyone kind of falls into a different category depending on their specific circumstance. Okay, so here's the first with Social Security, I guess, supplemental security, Social Security income I'd like to touch on. If a child with special needs is under the age of 18, okay, so the child has to be under the age of 18, the parent's income, their assets, and the size of their household are used to determine the child's eligibility. Okay, so this is under 18 years old. Once the child turns 18, that absolutely changes. Okay, since they're now considered a quote unquote legal adult, the federal government looks at their personal assets instead of their parents. So if your loved one has less than $900 a month in income or assets, he or she should be eligible for benefits starting at the age of 18. Most of you on the call might already know this, but if you go over that amount, you can see reduced benefits. So this is where special needs trusts come into play, which I'll talk about in a little bit here. Retirement Social Security, okay? So assuming there's some older people on the call and we've got parents that are retired and they've started taking Social Security benefits, the child could also be eligible for Social Security benefits as long as he or she was considered disabled before the age of 22. Okay, the child can actually get up to 50% of the parent's benefits depending on the parent's work history, right? So it's actually pretty fantastic because it does not change the Social Security benefit that the parents are getting. So this is one thing that most people are unaware about. Now, again, they have to be older parents. They have to be already in retirement. Just remember, these are just some of the most common benefits, but there's a lot of benefits out there that you can qualify for. This is where the government specialist government benefits specialist should be able to come in and really be a resource. This, to me, is an important topic I want to spend some time on. Developing your special needs plan. Trying to estimate what the potential annual future costs are going to be is a very difficult thing to determine. So again, government benefits specialists can help add value here. They tend to run some estimates and things like that, but we really don't know at the end of the day, right? Healthcare could change, things could change, but where do you live and what care is being provided right now? And then what do we foresee the potential annual future costs are going to be? One thing that people tend to overlook a lot in their planning is that you're adding, or the parents usually add, a ton of quote unquote do-it-yourself or free benefits to the child. You're not charging your daughter every time you take her to physical therapy appointments or anything of that nature. But if you weren't around, that stuff would cost money, right? So we talk about what would it look like, and I try to almost take the parents out of the situation, because that's a hard thing to think about, but it also is a potential reality. So spending time and quantifying what that potential future annual cost could be is important. It's important for quantifying how much life insurance parents should have. It's important for figuring out how to set up your beneficiaries on IRAs or 401ks or anything of that nature. How much needs to be in the special needs trust, for example. So let's talk about the special needs trusts. Probably one of the most commonly known. It gives you, basically it gives you funding options to supplement government benefits. Like, what is a special needs trust at its core? It gives you funding options to supplement government benefits, because the government benefits tend to cover kind of the bare bones. But it should not, the money that goes into these special needs trusts should not affect your government benefits. Okay, so when we talk about the benefits that are just kind of the government's going to give, Social Security, Medicare, et cetera, right? These do cover bare necessities, right? So a special needs trust is going to pay for things like building a better life for the child, things like rehabilitation, supplemental medical care, computers, entertainment, travel, cars, things that most people are going to want their child to have in the future, but the government benefits aren't really going to fill that gap. A lot of these government benefits are based on income and asset levels. So the cool thing about the special needs trust is it kind of parks that money in an area that's not considered as an asset or income in most cases. Okay, there's always a one-off, but in most cases, it's not going to tie into that income or asset level. So it becomes a beneficial place to put that money, right? The other thing to keep in mind is if, God forbid, the child passes away or predeceases a parent, okay, the money is not locked into a special needs trust. Okay, you can actually pull the money out of there and have it be distributed out to other family members and things like that. That's important. There's nothing we want to put together, or what I would say, there's nothing we want to tie together that we can't untie or unravel, because life does throw curveballs, life does throw changes at us. So we need to make sure that happens. A ABLE plan, for those on the call that are familiar with them, if the child passes away, predeceases the parents, and the money's still in there, a lot of times it's used to pay back Medicaid. So you might lose that money in an ABLE or a 529A. I like both special needs trust and ABLE plans, but if I was going to only pick one, I'd probably pick the special needs trust. One takeaway from this is really just make sure you know that the money inside of here should not have your government benefits be affected. Anyone can contribute to it. So if you have, parents, grandparents that want to add money to it, they absolutely can. So it becomes a nice little pot that you can put that money. So how to set up a special needs trust? How do you do it? What's the step to do it? So this is where the attorney is needed. So we talked about financial person, we talked about government benefits specialist. This is where the attorney is extremely important, because they're going to set up the special needs trust for you. Okay. You have to set up a trustee. A lot of times, if people don't have close family that they want to be the trustee of this account, meaning I guess I should explain what a trustee is. Someone who controls the money for the child until a certain point, or potentially forever, depending on how it's set up. A lot of times people will have banks actually serve as a trustee, believe it or not, because they are super familiar with special needs trusts and what is a qualifying distribution for it. One overlooked piece, to kind of move on from that, life insurance. I touched on it once a little bit earlier, but I would say a massive opportunity for most people in their planning is to utilize life insurance to fund a special needs trust. There is a potential that someone's child may or may not be permanently reliant on somebody, okay? So having life insurance be dumped into a special need trust when both parents pass away allows for that pocket of money to pull from to be a lot larger. And determining the amount of life insurance, the one thing I would tell everybody on the call is just don't, I wouldn't Google it. How much life insurance should I have if I have a child with special needs? Just because, again, it's different strokes for different folks. Everyone kind of qualifies for something different depending on their circumstance. And what I like most, and I already said this, but I'll say it again, what I like most about these special needs trusts is they absolutely can pass to other family members if the primary beneficiary, i.e. the child with special needs, passes away prematurely. So let's talk about the ABLE plans to kind of switch gears away slightly from the special needs trusts. So most may have heard ABLE stands for Achieving a Better Life Experience. And basically think about them like tax-free savings accounts. They're for people specifically that are diagnosed with a disability prior to their 26th birthday. So a little asterisk on this is this only works if a child is disabled before their 26th birthday. They can be set up absolutely at any time, and they can be extremely helpful. The tax benefits on these ABLE or 529A plans are extremely nice, where the special needs trust doesn't exactly get the same level of tax benefits. The account balance has to be maintained of $100,000 or less, so it won't affect Social Security income. So think about this, if people on the call are familiar with like a Roth IRA, kind of works in a similar fashion where you're contributing money into a 529A or an ABLE plan in a post-tax scenario. So let's say you take $5,000 and you put it in there. That $5,000 already has been taxed at your income levels, right? So it goes in, it grows tax-free, you can take it out tax-free. So extremely tax effective. One of the things that I really do not like about this though is if the primary beneficiary of the ABLE plan passes away, okay, that money in there most likely will be used to recompensate Medicaid. Most people don't like that. They do not like that as an option, but it still can work. I've recommended them a lot of times for people, and you'll see in a couple slides here, I'll talk about, it doesn't have to be so polarizing that all money goes into special needs trust or all money goes into ABLE plans. A lot of times I give recommendations that they go to both. You'll see here on this little slide, if you guys are looking at it, any money left in the plan at death must be used to reimburse the state for Medicaid support. But these are some typical uses of money within these ABLE or 529A plans. There's education, there's housing, there's transportation, there's employment training, anything that we can hopefully use to improve the quality of life. Obviously, leaning on your financial professional would be an ideal place to start when determining whether an ABLE plan or a 529A is appropriate for you. But there's also a website about your state's ABLE plans. So ablenrc.org, as you can see on the slide here, if you guys have a computer in front of you, it can help you kind of understand specifically the benefits per state, because actually in some states, you can get a tax deduction for putting money into it. You can do both, and I know I've mentioned this before, but this is literally a side-by-side comparison of ABLE plans versus special needs trusts. I created this document years ago because I kept getting these questions as to, what's better, this, that, and the other, and, eligibility, right? So special needs trusts, there is no age limits, where the ABLE plan, the person has to have been disabled prior to the age of 26 years old. The setup of an ABLE plan is really easy. There's no attorney fees or anything like that. Very easy to set up. It's basically just online paperwork. But a special needs trust, you need an attorney, and you need to pay an attorney to put that into place. There is contribution limits on an ABLE plan, right? 15 grand a year. You know, it will go up over time, index for inflation, that's what that means. But 15 grand a year is the max, where there's no contribution limit. So I just actually, you know, sadly enough, I was talking about life insurance previously. Maybe this is why it's on my radar, but just dealt with a husband and wife passed away in a car accident, and the money was all funded into the special needs trust. It was well over $1.5 million. There is absolutely no contribution limit. So now their child is left with a lot of money in that special needs trust, and the trustee is the brother, who is, I think he's 32 years old or something of that nature. So we're having conversations with him as to how he's going to access the money and what that's going to look like. But he controls the money now for the beneficiary of the special needs trust. So it can be very effective that way. Account balance limits, kind of on the same note here. The maximum for the ABLE or 529A is 100,000, where there is no max for the special needs trust. Uses for both of them are pretty wide. It's a pretty broad definition. From a taxability perspective, 529s or ABLEs are extremely tax effective versus special needs are not. You guys get that it can go back to Medicaid. I already talked about that. But the good thing about the special needs trust is it's going to go to family. So that's kind of a side-by-side little line up there. Okay, kind of jumping off of this for a second, I'm going to talk about more, I guess I would call it the personal planning side. So I've hit on all the highlights that I wanted to make sure I went through in regards to special needs trusts, ABLE plans, government specialists, attorneys. Please do not forget to plan for yourself. I would say this gets overlooked all the time. Parents, again, whether family with special needs or not, want to do everything for their children. Okay, but I always tell people, the problem is if you don't plan for yourself, your kids are going to have to take care of you later in life if you have not amassed enough wealth, saved enough, et cetera, et cetera. So how do we balance this? I would prioritize yourself first. I know that's hard, but you got to make sure you're doing things for yourself and your child at the same time. I always say there's low-hanging fruit that most people can take advantage of that they don't even realize. If you have the option to put into a 401k, right? It might seem like a no-brainer. Do it. Try to put as much as you can towards a 401k, okay? They're automated. They come out of your paycheck before you even get them. And most people on this call probably understand how a 401k works. There are options for Roth 401ks in most of your 401k platforms. So just to talk about what's the difference between Roth versus traditional 401k, another question that comes up a lot. A Roth 401k gets taxed right now and then never again. A traditional 401k defers taxes till after the age of 60. Okay, so a lot of times I get questions as to what's better. It's not that one size fits all, but I would tell you I'd make the argument based on where we're at from an economy perspective. Trump, this is not political, so don't shoot me. I know it's a very sensitive time frame right now, but Trump dropped taxes to like the lowest point they've almost ever been at in 2018. So we've almost never dealt with as low as a tax situation as what we're dealing with right now. So take advantage of that. Putting things into, the ABLE plans where you're paying taxes now, not later, putting things into Roth IRAs or Roth 401ks, anything you can do to offload the taxes right now while you're making money and not later is a huge, huge impact on the long-term planning. I'm going to talk conceptually about this for a quick second, but hopefully everyone will find this a little valuable, at least. If you can't tell, taxes are where I spend a lot of time and energy. But let's say that I have a husband and wife, and they call me up at the age of 65 years old. Let's say I've been working with them for 30 years. They call me up at 65 and they say, hey, James, we need to take out $100,000 out of our account. And by their account, quote unquote, let's assume they mean their 401k, IRA, whatever. So if I go take $100,000 out of their traditional IRA or traditional 401k, they pay taxes that year like they made $100,000. That $100,000 that comes out gets taxed at what we call ordinary income levels or ordinary income tax rates. So based on today's tax code, which we just talked about was extremely low, let's assume that you pay about 25 to 28% of the federal government on 100 grand, and let's say 3 to 5% in state income tax. So just assume you're going to pay about 30% of taxes on 100 grand. So you pull out $100,000, you only get to keep 70 grand. Okay, the government takes 30,000 in taxes because you haven't paid yet. Scenario 2 is, what if you could take 50,000 from a traditional IRA and 50,000 from a Roth? The 50,000 from the traditional IRA still gets taxed, but it's only 50,000, so it's a smaller tax. So of the 50, it kind of nets down to maybe about 40. And then the 50 that comes from the Roth is completely tax-free. So now instead of netting $70,000, you've netted $90,000. You didn't get a better, quote unquote, rate of return. You just lowered your overall tax burden in retirement. Okay, so Roth 401ks are absolutely huge. Life insurance is something that I believe, whether the family has a family with special needs or not, they need to have. You got to have your income protected with disability, right? You got to be able to keep protecting your income. Your ability to go to work and do your job is everything. Is what creates income for the family. There needs to be enough cash in the bank to stomach any what ifs. Especially with family with special needs, because hey, a one-off hospital visit could happen, and we could have some, unexpected medical bills come up that we need to address. And then you have to put your money to work. What I have found in my career of being in finance is that most families, especially with special needs, tend to hold a lot more cash in the bank because I think that they're worried of the uncertainty and not sure what life looks like, and we just need to be safe and put that money into our savings account. Just know that that earns no interest, right? Even right now, we're looking at like 0.01% rates of return in your bank or something of that nature. If there's an opportunity cost to hold money in cash, you have to make sure it's is being put to work. So those are just a couple of highlight items on your own planning. 401ks are another one. Sorry, really quick on 401ks. I get this question a lot too. Old 401ks, man, if you have them, move them to an IRA. 401ks are great. I feel like I just spent 10 minutes talking about how great 401ks are, and people should be taking advantage of them. When you leave a company, do not leave an old 401k in an old 401k. You should move it to an IRA. Okay. So you're not taxed or penalized on the move over. It's retirement account to retirement account, so you can do this rollover. But people don't realize there's these things called 12B1 fees that are administrative costs to have 401ks. And when you leave a company, they don't exactly cover it for you anymore. So the average expense ratio on like a 401k is like 1.8%. It's almost 2% so they take that money out of the account. A huge opportunity to make sure that people are not leaving, like I said, money on the table. Okay, so I'm going to move on from that. So that was a lot. This is kind of talking about the same thing, this slide here. I mean, planning for your guys' child with special needs is part of your financial plan. So it is important to you talk about what you guys want to have happen for your planning, right? Identify goals, set priorities, set goals, create a plan. And as life does change, as we talked about, you will have to tweak and change the plan. It is much easier for me to get somebody to start moving with inertia in the planning and then tweak it versus to get them to, start from scratch. I use the analogy of going to the gym on this one. If somebody goes to the gym every day, it's a lot easier for me to have them increase their workout. If someone never goes to the gym, it's pretty hard for me to get their butt off the couch. Well, I guess since I'm in the financial end, I'll talk about choosing a financial professional. You got to work with somebody you guys trust. That is the utmost important thing when dealing with finances, because you're going to have a lot of questions. What I have found is that we use a lot of terminology that people have no idea what the hell we're talking about. Sorry for the language. Make sure it's somebody that you trust. And for most people, if you don't have a family member in the financial world, trust is earned. It's not, expected, so to speak. Ideally, you'd want to work with someone who is experienced in working in the special needs space. Okay. And you want the person to work with you over a longer period of time. This is slightly different than an attorney. Okay. Because an attorney a lot of time transacts a special needs trust and doesn't really deal with it anymore. Where a financial professional, like our job is to keep up to date with you and make sure we're tweaking and changing all the planning to make sure it fits the goals. And hey, coronavirus, COVID, market went down in March. What do we do about it? How do we address the planning? So on and so forth. So as a quick recap here, we're probably right on time is what we anticipated. So assemble the team. I think that's the most important thing. Have people in your corner that you trust and that are professionals that you can go to and ask questions, because you cannot do all this stuff on your own. Like I said, this is my full-time job and I can only cover a third of it. Develop a plan, right? Understand your situation, decide what you want or have a goal for what you want for the future, right? Get the benefits that your loved one is entitled for or entitled to. Try to estimate the future cost of the care and establish some sort of fund. I would prefer a special needs trust in the beginning, just where you can put money so that we can still qualify for all the government benefits. And obviously don't forget to plan for yourself. Spend a lot of time on that at the end. Okay. That's a lot of info. I feel like it was a lot of pretty quick hitter stuff and coming at you like a fire hose. So I wanted to open it up for questions. And like I said before, it's kind of like school. If you guys, if you're thinking about it, somebody else in the call is most likely thinking about it. So I'd like you guys to be able to ask. But if there's nothing, that's okay too. I don't want to put anybody on the spot as I come back to life here on my video. But yeah, I guess, Stephanie, I'll kind of turn it over to you at this point. Try to stop this.
James, that was great information. So I've heard lots of financial planning presentations in my job, and I learned something new today. So I'm super excited about that.
Good.
That is really, really helpful. So thank you. I don't see any questions in the chat box. So you guys are welcome to type those into the chat box if you're not comfortable unmuting yourself, or you can also just unmute yourself if you want to ask some questions.
And I'll throw it out as people are kind of getting up the courage to ask the questions, or if they don't want to. I think, Stephanie, you put my information in that chat box, right? So if someone, you guys have my information, you got hopefully you have my email in there. If it's not too complex, it's James.Munder at nm.com, nancymary.com. Fire me off a question. And let me know any way I can help or be a resource for you guys. And if I can't personally do it, I'll point you in the right direction. If you just said, hey, James, do you have any, special needs attorneys that you would recommend? Absolutely. We got a handful of them. So I'm happy to help in any way that I can.
We do, James, have a question in the chat box. And this
Perfect.
is actually one that's fairly pertinent to me as well. So how does one go about moving an old 401k to an IRA? And that's the thing that I learned today, right? So I left my previous job 5 years ago, and I just left all of my retirement money sitting there because it was going fine. I never thought anything about it. So that's going to be my goal for next week. So tell us, what do we do?
Okay. So talk to a financial professional. So that's the short story, because if you actually do it wrong, they can tax the money.
Oh.
So, so I help people. I mean, at this point, I'm staring out of my office into one of my associates' cubes, Jeremy on my team. He probably does 3 of these phone calls a day where he calls Fidelity or Vanguard or whoever held the old 401k and says, hey, we're moving this into an IRA. What do we need to do to make that happen? So it's a rollover, not a distribution. And again, this is like us in the financial world using these words that to everybody else seems like the same thing. We're distributing the money, we're moving the money out, right? But if you say distribution versus rollover, distribution gets taxed and penalized, rollover doesn't. And then the question is, all right, so I'm taking it out of this employer-sponsored plan, a 401k that was probably pretty good, right? Hey, it went up and market was crazy in 2020. So we saw it go down, but it kind of came back up again because the market rebounded. 401ks, like I said before, I literally spent 5 or 10 minutes just talking about how great they are. I love them. And the reason I love them so much, I'm sorry, this is still on topic, but a little bit off tilt a little bit. I love them so much because they're automated. The biggest problem with people's planning is they don't save enough money. And why 401ks are so fantastic is that you guys don't even know the difference, right? The money goes into the 401k and then you get the check left over. So we don't know any different. So it's the most efficient way to automate someone's savings, but the investment options within 401k platforms are brutal. And those in the call can probably nod your head. Like if you've ever picked how your investment account within your 401k works, like you get a cookie cutter 20 or 30 options to pick from, you pick, check the box. And a lot of times they're what they call age-based funds. Like, hey, this is a 2045 fund. This is a 2040 fund, which is targeting your age, which are okay, but they miss small cap funds. They miss some international emerging markets, real estate, commodities. There's just a lot to be missed. So does that answer the question or no?
I think that
kind of, sort of.
Good to know. Rollover, don't distribute. So we have another question related to 401ks. So if you have a 401k and have profit sharing from your old company, would you still want to move the 401 to an IRA?
Yes. So profit sharing or company match doesn't really matter what it is. So sometimes there's what they call a vesting period where they say, hey, you got to be with our company for 5 years. We'll match. You put in 6%, we'll put in 3%, and we'll match the money, but you got to stay with us for 5 years to fully vest. What that means is they're matching that 3%, but you don't get to keep it unless you stick there for 5 years. So a lot of times what people think when they leave a job early is, oh, if I just leave the 401k there, I'll vest. Leave it for the 5 years, I'll vest and I'll get the full company match. That's not the case. They know when you stopped working for them. So if you haven't gotten fully vested, right, they'll take away that money when you move it over eventually, whether it's now or in the future. But specifically on like matches or profit sharing, when there's money in there, like you can still take, as long as that money's fully vested and all yours, you can take all of it, roll it over to an IRA. No harm, no foul.
Okay, perfect. So we have another question. What kind of insurance plans are recommended for trusts? And why go to an IRA versus rolling over into a new employer's plan? So 2 questions.
Oh, yeah.
Start with the
let's do that one because that's still on topic a little bit before we switch to the insurance stuff. So why move it to an IRA versus a new 401k at a new company? Because the investment options in IRAs are more efficient, and generally speaking, the fee structure is the same or lower in an IRA. So better investment options, similar expense ratio. We should be able to make the plan more effective. Okay. Most people think, and a lot of times when I get questions like that, the thought is compounding interest. That comes up a lot where someone might say, well, wouldn't I just want to put more money on top of more money? Doesn't that grow it at a better rate of return? The answer is no. It's a big misconception that I feel like a lot of people have on finances is if I have $200,000 in an IRA, or I have 2 accounts, each with $100,000 in them, right? And they both get the same rate of return, I have the same amount of money at the end of the day. The 200,000 just looks better because it looks like, well, I'm getting 10,000 in a rate of return here versus 10 and 10. The other question that you asked, what was it again, Stephanie? It was on the insurance. I forgot what the question was already.
So the question is, what kind of insurance plans are recommended for trusts?
Specifically life insurance, is that the question?
I believe
I'm assuming. So. Yeah. Man, life insurance, there's people that get very opinionated on it. And you guys, a lot of people on this call might have heard different thoughts and comments and term insurance and whole life insurance, and there's all these different ways you can do it. First of all, know that whenever you're talking about insurance, it's not like we punch a button and out pops a life insurance policy. These things actually have to be designed and created to fit the individual that we want. Personally speaking, I am a huge proponent of having an insurance that doesn't go away assuming that there is a potential that the child will forever be dependent on you or someone in the family. If that's the case, the need, it's not like your standard, hey, once my kid gets to 20 years old, they're off on their own and see you later. It's kind of like, hey, we might have to take care of them if we're not around. Like I said in the presentation, going through those PowerPoints, there's a lot of stuff you offer for free that now someone will need to be paid to do. And it's a big burden to put on the sibling to do all that. So I am a big proponent of having one that lasts forever. Now, the problem is those ones tend to be a little bit more expensive. So depending on budget, we got to kind of determine. I guess the easy answer to that is it's a budget conversation more than anything else, because different types of insurance are different expense ratios. But if there was no limit on the amount of income that somebody made and money was just growing on trees, which I know we're not living in that world, but if that was the case, I'd have the insurance last forever. No doubt.
So another question, the person says, I may have missed this part of the presentation, but can an education fund for a child with special needs be used for another sibling's education in case the child with special needs does not go to college?
So are you talking about specifically like an ABLE plan, a 529A? Can that be used for another child who does not have special needs? Is that what I'm hearing?
A 529A, yes.
Yeah. So the answer is no. The answer is no. What I believe you're thinking about is normal 529 plans, which are not 529A, not ABLE plans. They're just 529 plans that in your immediate family. So like, let's say my daughter, who's the oldest, kid that we have, let's say she gets a full ride scholarship. So all the money in her 529 plan can be rolled into my son's plan, who is 2 years younger. But that's a normal, standard 529 plan. It's not a 529A or an ABLE plan.
Another question. Let me read through it real quick. Okay. I met with my attorney and we discussed a special needs trust and specific wording for beneficiaries for life insurance, etc. But what is a special needs trust? Is it a written document, notarized, keep it in a safe? Is it an account in a financial institution?
It actually depends. That's a fantastic question. Like where does it live in the stratosphere of the world, right? You can have it depends is the short answer, unfortunately. Again, it's not one size fits all, different strokes for different folks. Sometimes people have unfunded special needs trusts. And an example of an unfunded special needs trust would be husband and wife have a life insurance policy, and the last to die, money gets funded into the special needs trust. So there's no money in it. It doesn't exist, but the bank is set up as like the trustee. So once the people pass away, it's written in the will or in the agreement that money gets all popped into the special needs trust. Sometimes the special needs trust is a money that isn't a bank. It can be invested. So I actually invest a lot of money that is in special needs trusts. So we can invest that money. We can put it into stocks, bonds, mutual funds. You can have it be safe and just have it in cash. So it could live almost anywhere on the stratosphere, which makes that question kind of hard to answer. But most likely, if there's money into it. Sorry, go ahead, Stephanie.
I was just going to say, I think as a mom who's not a financial person, I might be able to answer. I maybe know where you're going with this. So you have to go see an attorney to develop a special needs trust, and they write up a document that they give you. So they do all the paperwork. And like James was saying, initially that trust is just on paper. Like we have a trust for my daughter and it's only on paper. It doesn't actually exist yet. All of our paperwork, our will, life insurance policies funnel into this theoretical trust almost. Once we get money, because we're poor, we don't have anything. We need to get money, and then the trust will be funded. So once money comes in, then the trust will actually be created and it will be in a bank, but not until there's money to put in there. Does that answer your question? Okay.
Yeah, that's a great way to say it. Because and some people, like, let's say someone has a lot of money and they're like, well, I just want to put 100 grand into an account. Then a special needs trust would be immediate. It's situational. What else? Fire away, anybody.
That looks like we're caught up on the questions in the chat box for now. Does anybody else have any questions? I think that looks like it is it for now. James, thank you so much. This has been really, really informative, and you have inspired me. Next week, I'm gonna get my stuff together, and there's a lot of stuff I'm putting off because I don't like money, all this stuff. But you're right, I need to get on it. So thank you for being my inspiration.
Hey, I'm happy to do it. And just the only thing I would say is we're kind of closing the call, guys, is don't be scared to have the conversation, please. I promise you. I mean, attorneys, if you've got a good one, I don't love attorneys generally speaking, but if you've got a good one, they're not scared to talk to. Financial people are not scared to talk to. I can't tell you how many times I talk to people like, I can't afford to talk to a financial person. We know are the areas that we work within. As long as you have someone that you can go to, that you can trust with the advice or trust with the relationship, that's the most important thing. And I would just urge everyone on the call, don't let it fall to the back burner. On the 10 things that you guys have to do on a day-to-day basis, finances is always number 11. I always joke with everyone I talk to, it's like, I know I'm the last thing on your laundry list. Like, all I want to do is get up to number 5. I'm never going to be number 1, but I can't be number 50. Because what we hear from people in the financial world is the same thing every frickin' time. I work with a lot of people that are in retirement too. And no one ever says, man, I have so much money. I saved way too much when I was in my working years. It's always, I wish I would have saved more. I wish I would have done it earlier. I wish someone would have kicked me in my butt and told me to do it earlier. So guys, just don't be scared to have the conversations. If you want to have a one-on-one, like free consultation, we can do it. We can do it over the phone. You don't have to commit to anything, but I would just urge you to, in some direction or the other, get some step going forward. You will feel better about yourself, better about your finances, better about your situation, better about your child's future. And I found that a lot.
I am on mute. I was just going to add, if you guys need, if you need contact information for attorneys, DSI has a list of attorneys that have been recommended by other DSI families. So you are welcome to email me, and I will be happy to share that list with you of attorneys who have worked with other families that have been successful. And obviously we've got, a great resource here in James. I just reshared his contact information in the chat box. So please feel free to copy that down. And James, thank you so much. This has been really, really informative, and we're grateful to have you here.
I'm glad to help, guys. Have a good Friday. Thanks for taking the time out of your day, okay?
Bye, everybody. Thank you.